Everything we're doing is basically voluntary.
One of the things that you have to be able to do is to track people who are positive.
We've been very specific about the need for a contact tracing workforce.
Their morals, their code. It's a bad joke.
Where were they? Who were they in contact with? How can you hem up any recurrence of this?
What policies should we have? Because until we get almost everybody vaccinated globally, we still won't be fully back to normal.
Massachusetts has recently announced that they're going to try to build a statewide tracking program, and they've asked Partners in Health to run it for them, and they're one of my partners. But where are we going to get all these contact tracers?
What we have now is called Cal Volunteers. In the spirit of Sarge Shriver, we are asking people, thousands of folks, to be part of this new corps, to get trained and to help us.
We've proposed enabling certain authorities in federal government. That the Corporation for National and Public Service, for example, has 75,000 service members, many of whom have been idled. The Peace Corps has 7,000 who have been returned home, because ultimately the data on who's positive from an expanded testing effort, a public health system where people who are trained, who know how to keep themselves safe, can interact with those who then either need to be isolated, self-isolated.
Using AmeriCorps specifically, I thank you as a champion for AmeriCorps for decades.
And law enforcement is going to be pulled in. And one of the articles I wrote, I said the law enforcement community will enforce the New World Order.
The entire global population.
Should we have a contract tracer corps, even if we call it something more elegant? Should we?
Yeah.
But also to those contacts of those who present some risk, both for further testing and precision quarantine or precision isolation.
And precision quarantine or precision isolation.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
What difference at this point does it make?
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
The Corporation for Public Service actually receives 5 or 6 times the number of applicants for every one that it hires, so it has a standing database of people who are interested in serving their country. In the Ebola fight in West Africa, we actually used the military with a group called Médecins Sans Frontières, a public health NGO. We could, the Yale School, a number of schools out there have training modules. We could have a standardized and large-scale training, but we need to stand up that workforce, and we propose the federal government should pay for it.
It was wrong.
That every decision maker everywhere can kind of tap in and see, are there enough tests happening in a particular place? Where's the capacity constraints? How do you how do you direct tests to places that have more capacity to get quicker results?
I have been told by state troopers across the country that there are plans ready to be implemented that would include roadblocks and choke points, as we call them, major interstate junctions around major cities and so forth, where the greatest number of people can be held.
We're not going to have at every state border, some complex quarantine center.
Buses that will be standing by for people at roadblocks that refuse to take the inoculation.
This is powerful medicine.
You choose the poison.
But if you take a big dose of it earlier, you don't have to take it for nearly as long.
It's either slow homicide or slow suicide. They're either going to kill you with the injection, or if you go up and say, sure, I just want to be able to go wherever I want to go, and you take it, to me that's virtual suicide. Slow motion suicide.
So these are all really specific actions, some of which we're starting to already see take place in the bill that was passed just recently.
There are also plans that will ensure that you do not freely travel, nor will you be able to really go anywhere
till we get to that full vaccination
without proof that you have had the vaccination.
What we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person.
So we've all talked about not getting the vaccination, that's clear, but you may not have a choice.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
At the point that the government mandates that certain levels of the population take the inoculation.
And the $100 billion price tag, which, at the time felt perhaps like a lot.
Number who are infected.
If we had the federal backing, if the federal government said, hey, we're going to reimburse you for tests at a level of $100, by the way, we're getting test results from labs at $50. So if we got a $100 reimbursement, it would be even better.
Things like reducing childhood death.
It would be even better.
We've already made a $25 to $30 billion initial investment.
Reducing childhood death.
The $100 billion is for the whole year. About $80 billion of it is in the $100 per test reimbursement structure we've proposed, and the rest is for the workforce, effectively.
Should we have a contract tracer corps, even if we call it something more elegant?
The workforce. So we feel like the country is going to and needs to spend this resources. Now it's about doing it well and doing it in a coordinated way.
But this is an interesting point that's often not brought up. We have tracing capacity that predates COVID-19. It goes back to SARS, measles, TB, et cetera. Tracking and tracing capacity that exists in the county levels primarily, and increasing capacity at the state level. So what we're doing is we're building off that existing infrastructure and using the tools of technology to isolate individuals that have either been exposed or quarantine people that are tested positive. And that's just going to require an army of folks.
Is that what they're calling it now? Because it seems to me that this is the nightmare panopticon total surveillance grid that crazy conspiracy theorists have been warning about the creation of for decades now. But no, you silly conspiracy theorists, you were completely wrong. That never existed, and you were crazy and paranoid for even caring about it. But, oh, here it is, and it's now called contact tracing. You see how this works. This leads to a remarkably profound and remarkably simple observation about propaganda.
And the capacity of consideration from individuals to allow for their privacy to be impacted by that kind of acuity of attention.
Oh, yes. Contact tracing.
I've got to apologize because I have to brush up. My 28-year-old daughter tells me, Dad, you are old at 60. When I saw Ariana Grande on the program, I thought that was something at Taco Bell. Girl, let me give you all your respect. Did y'all enjoy this icon? She's an icon.
But I believe it's still a majority that will be standing in line saying, get your shot or get on the bus. That's what's coming.